Hey coffee nerds, great to see you again, because today I want to talk briefly about one of the most sleek and compact coffee brewers I've ever held in my two hands, the OREA. And as you can see, I actually have two of them here, but I'll get to that in a minute. They are slightly different, but in this video I do want to walk you through what a typical brew looks like in the OREA, a recipe that I tend to use almost every day. And then I'll get into some of the design details of the OREA that I feel really make this brewer unique. But enough of the fluff, let's dive right in. Okay, that's enough. They are very fun to spin around as well. Reminds me of Beyblades, but I'm not gonna use this black one for now. I'm gonna grab this beautiful silver aluminum with silicone sleeve. This is the version 2. As I mentioned, I will get to the distinction soon, but let's just get right into it. You're gonna need a cup. I'm gonna choose this one, and one that is slightly on the narrower side. And since we're gonna be making a smaller brew, this one works great. And you're gonna be able to see all the coffee drip down into the glass as well. So that's an added bonus. And then this brewer takes Kalita filters. So these are typical Kalita filters. This is the smaller one, because as you can see, it's a pretty small brewer. And these are called the 155, number 155. So pop that on. And then let's do a quick rinse to start us off. And one thing I could mention here, I guess, is, I don't know if it's like a disclaimer or anything, but I basically never use Kalita. I've never owned one. I very rarely use, that's hard to say. I don't use it that often, but this one does take Kalita filters. And one of the reasons I don't love Kalita is because I always tend to mess up the filter somehow. But if you have any coffee nerd tips for how to keep that Kalita filter nice and primed like it is here, do leave it in the comments. I would love to hear about it. Let's get right into the brew. So, as you know, we'll need coffee. So I'm gonna grab my grinder here, and without boring you with too many of the grindy details, grab our coffee, and we're gonna add 15 grams here. So, all right, so the reason why I like to use 15 grams is because I find with this brewer, it gives me just the right amount of coffee, essentially the most amount of coffee. You can use more, but I found that this 15 grams fits a nice water to coffee bean ratio in the brewer itself. If you do more, it's possible. You'll just have to grind a little bit coarser, and you'll have to do more pours because there's just less room to work with. So I like this ratio. And also, you can tell by the grind size here, it's not too fine, but what's nice about this brewer is you can grind finer if you want, and I'll get into that also in a minute, but let's just start brewing. So we got 15 grams here. Gonna set the timer and start pouring the bloom. I like to do around 45 ml for the bloom. Do a quick twirl, and now this is the meditative part. So I've found that it tends to take around 4 to 5 times of filling up this brewer to the top. But I'm using a scale here, as you can see, so you don't necessarily have to count. So we're working for around 225 milliliters here. I like that. It gives us a nice smooth 1:15 ratio of coffee to water. But of course, it depends on the coffee that you're using. With a lighter roast, sometimes I will push that a little bit further, maybe 1:16, 1:17. But I like this, and we're at around 2 minutes. So that's a nice time range for this amount of coffee in my experience. All right, so this is done here, as you can see. And I'm just gonna pop this over on the side. And as I mentioned, while we're waiting for this to cool a little bit, I have two of these. And I promised you I would explain why and what the differences are. So what I'm holding in my hand, this black one, is the version 1. And this is the version 2. As you can see, there are some more holes on the bottom, slightly different look. The version 2 does come in both colors, but the reason why I have two is because the inventor of the OREA with an H, actually sent me this one in the testing and pre-launch phase, and then sent me this one later as an iteration. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, OREA. And that's why I have both versions. So a few minor differences between the two. The early prototype It only came in black, and it came with this beautiful leather sleeve around it. Also, there is only the 4 slits on the bottom and no hole in the middle. As you can see from the other one, as I mentioned, there's a hole in the middle, and it does come in 2 colors. So it's got the silver and then the matte black. Also, one thing to keep in mind, this is a little bit of my feedback, with the silicone sleeve, I find that it gets even hotter because the aluminum here is very heat conductive, as you know, and it tends to just go right through this silicone. So I'm able to hold it, but right off the brew, it was a little bit harder. So the leather one tends to protect my fingers a little bit more. So that might be some tips if you're considering buying this. I love these leather. They're all handmade. OREA showed the whole process in some of his videos. So I encourage you to go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description. But that's about it. In terms of the taste, it's great. It's awesome. And that's basically where I'm gonna leave it, because you're gonna use a different coffee than me. You're gonna use a different water, different recipe, different time. So I'll just say it's great. I love it. I like the quick drawdown. It allows me to grind finer if I want to, or to go coarser and do more pours. You can experiment. So that's great. And then I love how small it is. And one thing that I think is super cool about this is it allows me to brew more conveniently smaller cups of coffee so that I can just taste more of them, as opposed to brewing one big cup of coffee. With this one, for example, if I brew a small with that one, it tends to just have a very small amount of coffee grounds at the bottom, and it's harder to dial in a brew. So I like this. Also, you can cut down on your caffeine more easily in that way, if that's what you're into. So that is a big plus for me. But what I want to do is break down a little bit of this box, this packaging, because it's super cool. I'm not going to read everything, but what I think is really neat is this little booklet in here. So this is a great moment. If you open it up, you can see some starter recipes. So here it actually recommends anywhere from 12 grams of coffee to 18 grams of coffee. So you can play around. And then it mentions a little bit of the care behind these brewers, how you're gonna clean them, how you shouldn't clean them. But let me read you a little bit of the philosophy that OREA has put in here. So the V2, the version 2, which is the silver one, is designed to optimize for speed. So higher drawdown speeds allow you to grind finer, as I mentioned. The lower contact time mixed with the finer grind will extract more brightness and texture from the same coffee. So I would encourage you to try that out for yourself. I can verify that that's certainly true. It's getting better and better as it cools. But what I really find interesting here is the impact page. So it's saying make an impact. 10% of the profits from your purchase will go to a wonderful charity called Coffee Kids. They help young people start coffee-related businesses in origin countries. And that is super cool because OREA was able to start this coffee-related business in England, in the UK, and I never knew about this charity, Coffee Kids, so I'm definitely gonna look more into it. I think it's really, really interesting. And then, of course, there's ways to connect and share. But this is super beautiful. And to be honest, I think I'm gonna switch this out right after this video because, as I mentioned, these handmade leather sleeves are great and they tend to protect my fingers from the heat of nicely, freshly brewed coffee. So let's put that away. And that's pretty much it. That is the OREA. I was just very inspired by this story, and I really appreciated OREA reaching out to me and sending me these brewers to test out, to take pictures of, to brew with, to share, and also to make this video. Well, that's something that I just chose to do. But that being said, I do want to make another video for those of you who maybe are starting coffee related businesses. Maybe you're a coffeepreneur, maybe you have a coffee product that you're launching, relaunching, or thinking about launching. And I want to make a video about how OREA really applied the lean startup method, in my opinion, when I heard about his story, to launching this product and doing it in a way that was strategic and doing it in a way that he was able to iterate on it and really take feedback. So if that's you, if you're a coffeepreneur or you're thinking about launching a product, anything related to coffee, now would be a great time to subscribe below, click that button, put the notification bell on, whatever you got to do, because I'd love to see you here again and maybe continue this conversation about coffee and business and marketing and just a strategic approach. So I really like what OREA has done. For the rest of you, enjoy a great brew. Hope to see you next time as well. And that's about it. Super cool. Cheers.